Okay, just a second. Hold on a second. Yeah, it's coming up. Yeah, Pankaj, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mahesh. Vandami Bhante, Namo Buddhassa. Welcome all to our online Vihara. And today we have Bhante Vimalakitti Gunasiri as our guest speaker. And as you guys are aware, December 25th was the Manusmruti Dahan Divas. And this year was the 97th year since that event happened in Baba Sahib's life, the changing event. We like to call it the Liberation of the Humanity Day. Uh, so with that in topic, we approached Bhante to give us a session on Dr. Ambedkar on Manusmruti versus equality. So Baba Sahib's thoughts on that, and that's what Bhante is gonna cover us. Bhante is very well known, been very active at very different institutions, even at institutions run out of Diksha Bhumi, Nagpur as well. But the main introduction for Bhante would be right now. He's a founder and director at Mahanag Sakyamuni Vidyasanam. And that is the first Buddhist seminary in India that Bhante wanted it to be as how Baba Sahib envisioned the institution to be run or to be formed. So with that short introduction, Bhante, on behalf of all the participants, I request you to please give us the days now on today's topic, Dr. Ambedkar on Manusmruti versus equality. Thank you, Bhante.
Dear brothers and sisters in the Dhamma, first of all, let me thank you for inviting me to speak in your Buddha Vihara program, which is your regular feature. And I very much appreciate your efforts in propagating the Dhamma and Dr. Ambedkar's thought regularly online. And therefore, I want to congratulate you for your enthusiasm. Without saying some general things, I will straightway plunge into my subject. When we think of Dr. Ambedkar today, and what general impression we get out of his, impact on today's world is very, very important. Dr. Ambedkar is now not just limited to the ex-untouchables or backward classes, or even just the Indian masses. But he has transcended all boundaries and reached out to the global heights as a champion of humanity and a symbol of true knowledge. There is no denial of this fact. He belongs to the world now, and to all those who aspire for humane treatment and full justice. It is therefore very necessary to remember him in his thoughts and in his deeds. The talk we have organized today is for remembering him thus, and therefore very pertinent and praiseworthy. The subject of today's talk is very appropriate one, and in keeping with the spirit of history, as well as Dr. Ambedkar's ultimate aim in life. Therefore, I once again congratulate you for choosing this subject. The subject you are given to me is Dr. Ambedkar on Manusmruti versus equality. That's a very good subject. But let me have a word of caution. Manusmruti and the concept of equality are poles apart. Manusmruti is antithesis of equality. Therefore, the main point of discussion today is just Ambedkar's views on Manusmruti and its worth, if there is any. Remember this. Dr. Ambedkar's views on equality is quite a different subject, which needs to be dealt with separately, examining so many different aspects of his concept. So let us restrict ourselves today to Manusmruti and consider that epoch-making event of burning it and its relation with the life and mission of Dr. Ambedkar. It was on the eve of 25th of December 1927 that the event of burning Manusmruti took place at Mahanag in the Raigad districts of Maharashtra in India. Dr. Ambedkar was, in fact, the actual writer of the event, but strategically, the Manusmruti was not burnt by him. It was actually burned by one of his Brahmin associates, Gangadhar Nilakantha Sahasrabuddhe. We often say Manusmruti was burned by Dr. Ambedkar. Of course, he was the moving power behind it. As I said, he was the writer of the event. But the actual burning was done by somebody else. Before this event, there was already a satyagraha organized before on 19th and 20th March 1927, where Dr. Ambedkar defied the prohibition of drinking water from the town's public tank, which was not open to the untouchable communities. Thereupon, the upper caste Hindus had purified it by pouring into Panchagavya. What is that Panchagavya? Panchagavya is a mixture of 5 things that are obtained from the cow. They are milk, curd, ghee, cow dung, and cow's urine. They put together, mix that, and pour that into the tank and declare that it was purified. Now, even a man of common sense knows that cow dung and cow's urine are not the chemicals which purify anything, leave aside water. They're polluting elements, not purifying. And yet this was done by the Hindus according to their own belief and tradition. That, of course, irritated Dr. Ambedkar. It was a great insult And so he decided to organize the Satyagraha again, second time, which was held on 5th and 26th of December 1927, wherein the Manusmruti was found. So I do not want to go into other details of the event, but just want to confine myself to the point and consider the aim and objective of the event and its message. So first of all, let us know something about Manusmruti. As is said and believed by the Hindus, that it is a religious scripture. But it is not a matter of fact. It is neither religious scripture nor part of it. But it's a book of codification of Hindu society. It's a book of law. But it's not a common book of law, as we understand. Law can be changed. Law can be modified. There's room for revision. But this is not applied to Manusmruti, because it is proclaimed to be a divine book of law, issued forth from the God and written down by the most revered ancient sage Manu. It thus being the word of God, it cannot be questioned, denied, or amended. Observance of the laws of Manusmruti was deemed to be a religious act and conduct, and therefore true worship of God in daily life. And this is the reason why Indians observe caste. Although it is exposed fully and proven to be harmful to human beings and the society. So there was no revolt against Manusmruti and the caste system throughout thousands of years in India. Even today, because of this sanctity accorded to that scripture, Hindus observe caste, believe in caste, and follow the dictates of Manusmruti. Let us remember this fact very, very clearly. It was Dr. Ambedkar who, in fact, first of all, challenged Manusmruti. According to him, Manusmruti was written by one Brahmin called Sumati Bhargav during the reign of Pushyamitra Shunga, a Brahmin who had killed the Buddhist Mauryan king Bhadrat and usurped his throne and established the Brahmin Raj. That was the counter-revolution brought about by Brahmins to end the Ashokan welfare state, which was based on Buddha's teaching. Therefore, Ambedkar stated, the name of Manu had a great prestige in the ancient Indian history of India. And it is with object to invest the code with his ancient prestige, that his authorship was attributed to Manu. That this was a fraud to deceive people is beyond doubt. The code itself is signed in the family name of Phrigu, the Manusmruti. So this fact we must know, that this is written by Brahmins and it has nothing to do with divinity. And it was imposed by the ruling kings. It was not something that people accepted out of conviction. And in order to impose it upon people, the Brahmin rules did first thing, that of denial of education to the masses. On the contrary, when there was Buddhist kings ruling the country, we know that the bhikshus were teaching each and everybody. And their dwelling places, which were called viharas, became universities. This was wonder throughout the world. So enlightened people, they taught people, they improved their lives, they advised them, taught skills and philosophy. But Brahmins, by imposing injunction on education, threw the whole of India into darkness of ignorance. This is the history of India. So, that, authority, king's authority, it was misused for suppressing people and for their enslavement. And the Buddhists were persecuted all along during the reigns of Brahmin kings. Historian Barnov has written, then there is evidence that Pushyamitra, after his accession, launched a violent and virulent campaign of persecution against Buddhists and Buddhism. How pitiless was the persecution of Buddhism by Pushyamitra can be gauged from the proclamation he issued against the Buddhist monks. By this proclamation, Pushyamitra set a price of 100 gold pieces on the head of every Buddhist monk. And this is how they destroyed Buddhism. That the Buddhists were persecuted by the Brahmanical kings is not very well documented in the Indian history. Dr. Ambedkar has therefore written that much of the ancient Indian history is no history at all. Not that ancient India has no history. It has plenty of it. But it has lost its character. It has been made mythology to amuse women and children. He has further stated that with the help of Buddhist literature, ancient history can be dug out of the debris which the Brahmins writers have heaped upon in a fit of madness. So history of ancient India today is misleading. and not really true. Dr. Ambedkar therefore suggested that with the help of Buddhist and Jain literature and the literature in Pali, Magadhi, Ardhamagadhi, and Prakrit should be studied, and out of that study, a new history should be written. This task nobody has undertaken so far, but this needs to be done. Now, it is clear from this that Manusmruti is a product of Brahmanical rulers for subjugation of the Indian masses. Now let us see what kind of this book is and what kind of laws the Muni has prescribed to govern the individual and the society. The main provision is that of division of human beings into 4 classes or groups. Brahmins, the priest; Kshatriya, the warriors; Vaishya, the merchant; and Shudra, the eternal servant. These are the 4 classes. The society is divided into 4 classes. But they are not at par with each other. They are supposed to have born from different part of the body of Purusha or God. The Brahmin from the mouth, the Kshatriya from the arm, the Vaishya from the thigh, and Shudra from the legs. They are therefore superior or inferior according to the standing of the limbs of the Purusha, the top being the mouth and the bottom being the legs. So the Brahmin is at the top and the Shudra is at the bottom. This is the root of all sorts of inequality taught in Manusmruti. The very basis of Manusmruti is the concept of inequality. And this is imposed upon people by king's power. And that is why India was illiterate about 100 or 200 years before. It was more than 1,000 years. So, these people were also allotted professions and the status associated therewith. They were not at all equal and interchangeable. They were designed in the form of graded inequality. This is a very special principle. Graded inequality. Unless we understand these particular words, we will not be able to know real nature of Manusmruti. What this graded inequality means? Which means the Brahmin is the highest in status because he's born out of mouth of the Purusha, which is lofty, pure, and sacred. He's highest in authority as teacher and priest. And moreover, he is entitled for all amorous and worldly privileges and security of life. Unparalleled, very exclusive. This was the status of Brahmin. And even today, they are passionately clung to this idea and want to impose upon others the very same concept. The Kshatriyas comes next, but lower in status and authority than the Brahmin, but higher than Vaishya and Shudra. So he has something to boast upon and be proud upon because he's above some castes. So he can tolerate Brahmin domination and can exert his authority on the lower classes. So of course he's not going to go against the caste system. Then comes the warrior, of course, has lesser authority, and his work is that of a soldier and a ruler. The Vaishya is lower than the Brahmin and the Kshatriya in all respects, but higher than the Shudra. So he has something to boast and feel proud of, being above somebody. So he's not going to revolt against that system because he has some authority, some prestige, something higher, which makes him proud. And then finally the Shudra, because he's born out of legs, the lowest part of Purusha's body, he has no status, no authority, no privileges at all. He is only supposed to serve the above three classes without any condition. So this is the gist of Manusmruti. This is the power, hidden power of Manusmruti, graded inequality. So the top and bottom are clear, but the caste in between have something to feel pride upon, although there is something insulting or lower in status. It is tolerable. And this being the case, there is no revolt against Manusmruti for two reasons. Because of this doctrine of graded inequality and because of its divine nature. Therefore, Dr. Ambedkar had once said that in India, no Voltaire could be born. So taking all these aspects into consideration, Dr. Ambedkar has said, Manu was most anxious to preserve the rule of inequality, which was his guiding principle. And this is what Manusmruti is all about. you cannot have any chance to have a glimpse of equality in Manusmruti. It is just the doctrine of inequality. Now, the next important question is that how is one supposed to acquire that status of caste? So there is a very special doctrine devised by the Buddhists. They did not leave the acquisition of caste for choice. They based the acquisition of caste on actual birth. As soon as a person is born to certain parents, to whatever caste they belong, that caste is given to their child. It is attached to him. He has no choice. He has no way to deny it, no way to escape. So this doctrine of deciding the worth of man on the basis of his birth is very, very harmful, notorious doctrine. It's the greatest injustice done to human beings. That is anti-science, anti-nature, anti-moral. Anti-truth. And it was because of its, worthlessness that Buddha, first of all, condemned it in very sharp terms. He was the first man in Indian history, or human history, so to speak, who said that the worth of man does not depend on his birth, but it is exertion. His work, that is his karma. So he said, na jacha vasulo huti, na jacha huti brahmano. Kamuna vasulo huti, kamuna brahmanoti. One is not low caste because of his birth, or high caste because of birth. It is only his doing, his karma, that can make one higher or lower. And this is the principle that Dr. Ambedkar wanted all Indian people to accept today. And that is why Buddhism is necessary for India. Unless you change your mentality, make it scientific, make it natural, make it reasonable, make it rational, you cannot expect any progress in your life. And this power one can obtain only from Buddhism and from nowhere else. This being the case, Baba Sahib condemned not only the Manusmruti, but all Hindu scriptures, and proved that whatever Hindu literature is available today, all that is against Buddhism and was created to counteract Buddhism, suppress Buddhism, annihilate Buddhism. With this Ramayana, Mahabharata, whatever scripture they talk about. Vedas might be ancient, but Upanishads certainly not. They are written after the Buddha. It is shown, it is proven by the historians that the oldest of the Upanishada, called Yajnavalkya Upanishada, was written at the time of Buddha himself. And the historical persons are mentioned in that scripture, which is the proof of it being written at the time of Buddha. So this is very important aspect that Baba Sahib has put forth and written volumes and volumes over the doctrine of Hinduism, its history, its philosophy, and everything concerning Hinduism. Manusmruti, just one tiny part of it, but governing the whole Hindu society. Scriptures have no governing power, but the Manusmruti has. Now let us see what kind of governance the Manusmruti has provided. Just for sample, we'll go through certain aspects and come to our conclusion. For example, what the Manu has to say on marriage. Very interesting. He says, for Brahmin, for the first marriage of the twice born means Brahmin, is woman of the same class. So you can marry with the Brahmin woman. But if you have inclination and impelled to marry again, then he can marry with three lower categories castes, that is Kshatriya, Vaishya, and even Shudra women. So he can have 4 wives. That is the authority given to him. On the contrary, a Shudra woman can only be wife of a Shudra. Only Shudra. The Shudra has no right to marry with any other woman belonging to higher castes. But she and a Vaishya woman can marry with the Kshatriya. And Kshatriya can marry the Vaishya and Shudra woman. So the Brahmin have such a lofty privilege of marrying all women belonging to every caste. Now let us see what the Manusmruti has to say upon defamation and punishments. It is stated in Manusmruti Adhyay 8, Shlok 267. A soldier defaming a priest shall be fined 100 panas. A merchant thus offending the priest, he will be fined 150 or 200 panas. And for such an offense, the Shudra shall be shipped, driven out of the country. If slandering offense is considered, a priest shall be fined 50 panas if he slanders a Kshatriya. He will be fined 25 panas if he slanders the Vaishya, and only 12 panas if slanders the man of servile class. See? But what to do with the Brahmin? Brahmin can only have different punishment. What is that? Ignominious tonsure is ordained instead of capital punishment. For an adulterer of the priestly class, where the punishment of other classes may extend to loss of life. And there is injunction on the kings. Never shall the king slay Brahmin, though convicted of all possible crimes. Let him banish the offender from his realm, but with all his property secure and body unhurt. See? So much protection, security. What about learning? So it is said, if the Shudra intentionally listens for committing to memory the Vedas, then his ear should be filled with molten lead and lac. He should die. So that's a death penalty. If he utters the Veda, then his tongue should be cut off. Of course, then he's also going to die. And if he has mastered the Veda, his body should be cut to pieces. He should be killed. So here Veda is the sacred book of Hindus. And the lower castes are not supposed to read that and understand that or learn something from that. They just honor it, accept it as divine book of their religion. But they have no access whatsoever to its actual content. So this was a severe, excluding even Kshatriyas. The learning was very restricted and very selective, not overall sort of learning. No doubt they was plunged into ignorance. Then what about the acquisition of wealth or earning for one's living? It is said in Manusmruti, no collection of wealth must be made by a Shudra, even though he be able to do it. For a Shudra who has acquired wealth gives pain to Brahman. Very strange doctrine. If a Shudra acquires wealth, it pains Brahmin. What a strange thing. And then further said, whatever exists in the world is the property of the Brahmins. On account of the excellence of its origin, the Brahman is indeed entitled to it all. So everything in the world belongs to Brahmins. Nobody has any right over it. It's only because of their compassion, their permission, that other people have some right to property. Because they are allowed. Otherwise, it belongs to Brahmins alone. How you can possibly look into this Manusmruti? First, something fair. Something good for human being, or something that is justice to all. Nothing. So this is the nature of Manusmruti. We have just seen some examples as a sample. No, what Dr. Ambedkar has actually said about the Manusmruti, let us go into that. I'll just quote out of his writing. He says at one place, Manu recognizes slavery, but he confined it to the Shudras. Only Shudras could be made slaves of the three higher classes. Then he says, Manu is an irrational, Manus is an irrational system of punishment, inhuman in character and inequality of punishment. Manu does not stop with the non-recognition of human personality. He advocates a deliberate debasement of human personality. There are thousands of castes in India. How come they came into existence? Manu's answer, as stated by Dr. Ambedkar, is, and it's very shocking, very insulting. What Manu has said? Because there are not only 4 castes in Hinduism, Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya. There are thousands of castes. And how those castes came into being? The Manu has said, what is the origin which Manu gives? Baba Sahib is writing about this. He says that they are the progeny of fornication and adultery between men and women of the 4 original castes. See? The 4 original castes were so debased, so immoral, that because of that immoral conduct, that fornication, adultery, produced thousands of castes in India. Baba Sahib says, the immorality and looseness of character among men and women of the 4 original castes must have been limitless to account for the rise of innumerable castes consisting of innumerable souls. How immoral those people would have been, one can only imagine. So all castes in India are thus denounced by the Brahmins. Their very prestige is destroyed, and they're subjected to every kind of humiliation. And then further, Dr. Ambedkar says, Manu will not tolerate the Shudra to have the comfort of a high-sounding name. He must be contemptible both in fact and in name, so said Dr. Ambedkar. Hinduism is denial of equality, both social as well as religious, and it's also degradation of human personality. Hinduism denies freedom of vocation. In Manu's scheme, each man has his vocation preordained before his birth. The occupation being preordained, it has no relation to capacity nor to inclination. The Hindus believe there was no knowledge outside the Vedas. Hinduism, far from encouraging spirit of knowledge, is a gospel of darkness. And further, Dr. Ambedkar says, very, very important thing. His comment on caste system as a whole. He has written, caste devitalizes a man. Now, all Indians who believe in caste must take this seriously. Try to understand this. Caste devitalizes a man. It is a process of sterilization. Education, wealth, labor are all necessary for every individual if he is to reach a free and full manhood. Mere education without wealth and labor is barren. Wealth without education is brutal. Each is necessary for everyone. They are necessary for the growth of man. So why there is no development in India? The reason one can find in this comment. And therefore, Dr. Ambedkar says, the philosophy of Hinduism, therefore, neither satisfies the test of social utility, nor does it satisfy the test of individual justice. So all in all, Hinduism and their religious literature is advocate of inequality and inhumanity. You cannot get anything out of its practice, but can only subject yourself to ruination. This is in all what we understand of Manusmruti and Baba Sahib's comment on it. Now let us turn to the actual event. Why did Dr. Ambedkar burn the Manusmruti? To understand that, we'll have to go into the proceedings of that conference. In all, 4 resolutions were passed in that conference. Then the first reads, social injustice, religious lassitude, political degradation, and financial dependence have led to the decline of Hindu society. Please remember, the declination of Hindu society is because of Manusmruti, because of Hinduism. And the reasons are specified by Baba Sahib here in this very first resolution. And they are social injustice, religious lassitude, political degradation, and financial dependence. Then it said further, all men are equal and remain so still till death. That is part of first resolution. Condemnation of all Hindu scriptures for containing and promoting inequality. Outright rejection of the authority of Hindu scriptures. Opposition of the division of the rights of castes by the scriptures, leading to inequality in social life. And restriction of the use of public places is inimical to the organized social setup and justice. And there should be no discrimination based on birth. This is the gist of the first resolution. The second resolution reads, the second resolution condemned the Manusmruti as it decried the Shudras, stunted their growth, impaired their self-respect, and perpetuated their social, economic, and political slavery. Condemnation of Manusmruti. The third resolution deals with caste system. All should be called just Hindus. Addressing a person as Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra should be banned. So Dr. Ambedkar demanded banning of caste system altogether, including 4 Varnas. Of course, it did not happen. And finally, all should have right to practice the vocation, of course, of their choice. So these were the resolutions passed in that conference. And Dr. Ambedkar, while speaking on that, recalled the French resolution which had taken place on 5th May 1789 at Versailles in France. And he had explained the purpose of that conference where Manusmruti was burnt. What was the purpose? He said, the French meeting was called to organize the French society. And this meeting is convened to unite the Hindu society. See, Baba Sahib's social concern. He wanted to unite the Hindu society. And that society cannot be united if the castes remain intact. The French meeting prescribed 3 charters pertaining to the social setup, the religious discourse, and the human rights each. The Indian society also needed a doctrine propounding that all human beings are born equal. The practice of untouchability could not be eradicated without abolishing the system of caste. The mission of liberating the untouchables is the mission of self-emancipation, self-interest, and national interest. So this was the object of that conference where the Manusmruti was burnt. Now cut this long story short. Let me turn to the concluding part of my talk. In fact, I could have finished here because that was the only subject I was going to speak on. But is that justifiable? I think no. Because read the last sentence of Dr. Ambedkar's talk. The mission of liberating the untouchables is the mission of self-emancipation, self-interest, and national interest. The mission of emancipation of untouchables, in fact, means the mission of emancipation of Indians from all sorts of slavery. One must read in this way. So the burning of the Manusmruti was not at all the end of that mission. It was only a beginning of his mission and a resolution of annihilation of the doctrine and system which promoted all sorts of inequality, slavery, and mutual enmity amongst the Hindus, which ultimately led to ruination of the people and of the nation. This is the fact, historical fact. And so Dr. Ambedkar did not stop there. His mission, he pushed ahead. It marched on. And at least we can note 3 stages of that marching on. The first stage was abolishing untouchability legally. Article 17 of the Constitution. Practice of untouchability has made an offense punishable. The second stage was giving all people of India a constitution which secured all citizens justice, social, economic, and political, liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith, and worship, equality of status and of opportunity, and to promote among them all fraternity, assuring the dignity of the individual and the unity of the nation. I repeat, the dignity of the individual and the unity of the nation. These are the key words of Dr. Ambedkar's mission. And in order to realize that ideal, he had taken last step in his life. And that crowning glory of his mission was his conversion to Buddhism and his determination of making India Buddhist. Let us understand the importance and significance of conversion in this way. It's not ordinary thing. It's a great leap in the future, which throws great responsibilities on all Indians, and particularly his followers who are largely from backward communities. Therefore, it is bounden duty of Indians in general, and the backward communities in particular, to follow him suit. It is time to listen him earnestly and be his true heirs, true heirs. It is necessary to understand how to become true heirs of Dr. Ambedkar. Buddha, before his parinirvana, had told his disciples, "O monks, be Dhammadayada and not Amisadayada." That meant inherit my Dhamma and not my property or mundane things. So you are given to Bhikkhu Sangha, his followers, Dhamma as inheritance. It is time for Ambedkarite people, nay, even all Indian people, to become heirs of Dr. Ambedkar's thought and deeds. There is no escape. Unfortunately, people are not very clear about. So much confusion is there amongst Ambedkarites themselves. And majority of them have gone astray. This is known by everyone. I do not want to criticize. But the fact is known to each and everyone that Dr. Ambedkar has been betrayed by his people and by all Indians, so to say. So nowadays we insist on becoming the heir of Dr. Ambedkar, heir of his thoughts and deeds. How to do that? Unless until we become, very honest to Dr. Ambedkar, we cannot go further. So we have to inherit his true heir, inherit his true legacy, which he himself has spelled out, and that we are trying in India to implement with all our strength and vigor. There are 5 stages which I speak about briefly and conclude my talk. Firstly, we are helping people to become proper Buddhist, committed Buddhist, by taking Dhamma Diksha. People mostly call themselves Buddhist by birth, which is useless, meaningless. Because you do not know the Buddha, his Dhamma and Sangha and its relation with you and its utility for you. You don't have any idea of that. So you are not going to do anything. Only respect Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha, and that's the end of your Buddhist life. This is just nonsense. So Baba Sahib said one cannot be Buddhist by birth, but one has to accept that responsibility, accept Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, understand them, understand the relation of them to your life, and decide whether to follow that ideal or not. That is the Diksha. So Baba Sahib insisted on Diksha And when Baba Sahib was gone, his followers forgot about that and they began to believe in birth as a reason for being Buddhist. They're following Brahmins and not Dr. Ambedkar, not the Buddha. So I appeal all educated people to understand this aspect and become practical Buddhist, committed Buddhist, and never call yourself Buddhist by birth. I do not understand why the SCs, STs, and OBCs are still clinging to Hinduism, which has stripped them of their dignity, honor, and even the very essence of their humanity. Hinduism is nothing but caste system. Why these SCs, HTs, OBCs do still belong, still cling to the lowness of caste and call themselves Mahar, Bang, Chamar, and so on? This is your degraded status, and you are not prepared to rise above, come out of it. It's strange. The education hasn't proved to be useful in this connection. I'm sorry to say this. So this is first thing all Ambedkarites must do, become committed Buddhist. After taking proper diksha with full understanding and full conviction. Then secondly, they must change their caste surnames, because Manu has given those surnames. And Dr. Ambedkar was keen on disassociating himself from the caste. In fact, he wanted to annihilate the caste system altogether. Why the SCs, STs, and OBCs are still identifying themselves by caste names and bearing the caste names and caste surnames, which are derogatory and insulting? I just don't understand. In fact, they follow Manusmruti and call themselves Ambedkarites. This is a kind of dishonesty and must be denied with. For by not adhering to Dr. Ambedkar's advice in this respect, the Ambedkarites are not only deceiving him, but also striking at their very roots of development as true human beings. This should be understood and taken seriously by all people. You must become Buddhist properly. You must change your caste names. Third thing is practice Uposatha on every Sunday. This is not the place to talk about that now, because we're already very late. But learn it from the books, learn it from other monks. You can even invite me to give talk on the subject separately, how to practice Buddhism. So Uposatha makes you practical Buddhist, committed Buddhist. And the whole family gets revolutionized, completely changed. This very powerful teaching that Buddhists must accept and practice for their own benefit. This is the third thing we're trying to implement in India and working hard to propagate these principles. Fourth thing is that as Buddhists, they must go to Buddha Vihara on every Sunday. That association with each other encourages friendship, develops kinship, and produces greater happiness than what we experience in our loneliness. Again, this is a separate subject which can be talked about sometime later. And people, as Baba Sahib has advised, everybody must donate 20th part of his income for Dhamma work, not for anything different, for the cause of Dhamma. Again, this is a different subject where a lot of things to be considered and understood. But these 5 kind of things, if one accepts and commits to follow them, we call such a person the true son of Baba Sahib and true daughter of Baba Sahib. And give him title as Bodhisattva Tanaya and son of Bodhisattva. And Bodhisattva Tanaya, a daughter of Bodhisattva. And here Bodhisattva means Dr. Baba Sahib Ambedkar. This is, in fact, following an example of Buddha and Bhikkhu Sangha. One who becomes a monk or nun, renouncing everything, becomes homeless and joins the order. All those monks and nuns are called the sons of Buddha and daughters of Buddha. Sons of Buddha means Sakya Putta, and daughter of Buddha means Sakya Thita, because they commit themselves fully to the ideal and practice of Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. In similar way, today all Ambedkarites must commit to Dr. Ambedkar by accepting his teaching, becoming heirs to his teaching and his deeds, by committing to his principles, these 5 principles which has given us. It is necessary. If we commit ourselves to Baba Sahib's ideal, that amounts to commitment of Buddhism. And that is really what Baba Sahib wanted. He wanted all of us to be proper Buddhist. And through our efforts wanted India to be Buddhists. So that high ideal is still ahead. And we have to really work hard right from now. So dear friends, brothers and sisters, this is something I wanted to share with you on this occasion, relating to the subject of burning up Manusmruti. You have taken it very calmly and seriously, given me a patient hearing. So I thank you once again. And stop here my long speech. Thank you very much.
Bhanteji, thank you so much, Bhanteji. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. By delivering such a deep lecture, talk on the Manusmruti and the equality. How Dr. Ambedkar, sorry, I need to put my. So basically, you gave a very detailed perspective, history on how the Manusmruti has been formed, what is the inequality in the Manusmruti, and after that, how to get rid of it, and what is the next step, how we need to become a Buddhist. So very detailed talk, Bhanteji. And on this occasion, I mean, on the Manusmruti Dahan Din, on the 25th December, you gave us a very historical perspective on this topic. So thank you very much, Bhanteji. So I will request now the members to unmute themselves and raise your hand and ask your questions. So please go ahead. Pravinji, please go ahead.
वंदामी बनते
जय भीम।
नमो बुद्धाय जय भीम। बनते जी, मैं क्वेश्चन पूछना चाहता हूँ कि आपने एक वर्ड कहा क्या, दैट वी हैव बिट्रेड डॉक्टर B.R. अम्बेडकर एज अ होल, मतलब मैं पूरा बुद्धिस्ट और अम्बेडकराइट कम्युनिटी और शेड्यूल कास्ट, शेड्यूल ट्राइब्स, ओबीसी कम्युनिटी के बिहाफ में। तो अब आपके हिसाब से और कितना समय भारत को जाएगा एनिलिएशन ऑफ कास्ट के लिए, और इंडिया को मैक्सिमम परसेंटेज में बुद्धिस्ट बनने के लिए? मैं 100% तो नहीं बोलूंगा, लेकिन मैक्सिमम परसेंटेज इंडियंस बुद्धिस्ट हों, उसमें आपके हिसाब से कितना समय जा सकता है, आपके एक्सपीरियंस के हिसाब से?
I think this is a very relevant subject, a relevant question. And the answer is not really very difficult. In the scientific age of today, when the means of communications have become so speedy, so accurate, if we commit properly, practice sincerely, and present our ideal before the people, a change can be brought about very soon. It will not take very long time. But laxity could be dangerous. And if we don't take Baba's advice on this 5 points seriously enough, I don't know how long it will take to bring about the desired changes in India. That is the brief answer I can give. Thank you.
Thank you, Bante. Also, I want to have your number also, Bante, if you can give.
Yes.
आपका नंबर भी मुझे चाहिए रहेगा फर्दर डिस्कशंस के लिए।
Okay. 98
जी
50
यस
557
557
227.
227.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bante.
Yeah, please, Satak, please go ahead. Yeah, next question.
Vandami Bante, this is Chatak Dhakne from Michigan. Thank you for a very good talk, very insightful talk. I also spoke to you long time back, a couple of times, but today is a very insightful talk. And I have a question. In your many of the lecture, I heard you talk about we need to do the Dhamma Diksha. We are not a Buddhist because we are born Buddhist, but all the Buddhists should take a Dhamma Diksha. So please explain, how do we take this Dhamma Diksha? Each and every one of us are different age group, different demographic. We are coming from various zones all over India. So how do we take this Dhamma Diksha? What should be the process?
I think it is not a very difficult thing at all. There is little training beforehand, and we make people understand the nature of Buddha, the nature of Dhamma, the nature of Sangha, how all that is very scientific and very natural and very rational, and how implementing that ideal, the desired changes are brought about in our own life. So that is commitment to Buddhism. First, understand its natural and scientific significance and its relation to your own life. And then you feel that that is what you wanted, and you commit to the practice and become Buddhist. This is the only way. Unless and until we understand the relationship between Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, and ourselves, we cannot possibly be Buddhist. And that whole process is called Dhamma Diksha. And we train people in our seminary, Buddhist seminary, Mahanag, Shakyamuni, Vijjasan, the seminary, in this way. And once they are convinced, they become Buddhist on their own. They do everything according to their own convenience and their own strength. One need not worry about them. So this is what we have to do everywhere. And we have started a campaign in Maharashtra now, created some activists, as Baba Sahib wanted, lay preachers, who are called Dhamma Kathika in Pali. And we have trained them, and we want them to visit each house, have personal contact with the families and the people, and convince them, make them understand the things properly, and help them to commit to that practice and become Buddhist. In this way alone, we can now propagate Buddhism and make as many people as possible according to our strength and efforts. You can do this, have talks online on these particular aspects, and really understand how Buddhism is scientific, natural, rational, and a powerful instrument of change in our psychology and in our environment. So Buddhism has to be presented in modern terms and not traditional ways. Traditional terminology and concepts will not help you, because today people understand different language, which is mostly scientific. And you have to teach Buddhism in terms of science. And that is what we are doing in Maharashtra in our seminary. This is the only place where Buddhism is taught in this way. You can try and find out a way how to do and get benefited from this teaching. Okay?
Yes, Bhante, thank you very much for the answer. Also have one more different question. Recently, you wrote a book, and congratulations for that. Let us know, how do we buy this? Where can we buy this book? I think you wrote a Bodhisattva's Mission book in
Yes.
Marathi.
Well, that has been translated into English, but the work is not done right. In Marathi book, well, we can send by parcel if you want.
If we have to buy in Nagpur
Wait
or
for a
Mumbai,
sec. Hello?
yes, Bante, is it available in Nagpur bookstore?
Yes, it is available now.
Which
We have
store we can?
brought out second edition.
Okay. Thank you, Bante.
Thank you. Bhante.
One
Any-
more question, Bhante, I want to ask.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can I ask, sir?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Okay. Bhante, I want to ask, you said that we all should become true Buddhist. So what exactly it means, and does it means like we see in Thailand and various countries they practice meditation and they follow the Buddha teaching by implementing within themselves first. So is it like that, becoming a
No,
true
no.
Buddhist?
No, not at all. We are not following any particular pattern, either Thai, Sinhalese, Japanese, or Chinese. In fact, Buddha's teaching is to the point which can be presented in scientific terms instead of traditional terms. So the pattern is set once for all, and there is no difference. Only the approaches are different, and that is why we see different types of Buddhists and Buddhist methods and practices. They are just approaches. The gist is not different. It is one and the same. Whether Hinayan, Mahayana, Tantrayan, everything, the gist is the same. Once you understand the gist, the main principles, practice is very easy according to your time, according to your understanding, and according to help you receive from outside or other people. Okay?
Okay, Bhante. Thank you, Bhante.
Okay, I think we are running out of time. We are 10 minutes ahead of our schedule. So we'll take a last question now. So anyone, if you can raise your hand or you can type your question.
Vandami Bhante. I'm Dr.
Hello.
Alka Dhoki. Dr. Alka Dhoki.
Hello.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah. I read your book, Prabuddha Bharatache Bodhisattva Mission. You said, you sent me by post. It is very nice, and I gave one speech on reading this book in Bamsepha program. Thank you very much for sending me the book.
Okay.
Yeah, dear friends, we have been following Bhanteji since 2002. Even at that time, he was not ordained as a bhikkhu. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, madam. Is there any other question before we conclude the session? Again, we are 12 minutes ahead of the schedule. But so Bhanteji, today, thank you so much, Bhanteji, for joining our online Vihara. Just to give you the little history background, we are running this Vihara since last, I think 8+ years, from 2011. 2011, we are running this Vihara every week, non-stop. So, and I think we'll be happy to invite you again next time to talk more about related topics of Dhamma. We'll invite you, Bhanteji. And also, thank you everyone who continuously supporting to the online Vihara and joining every week, because it's everyone's Vihara, and we are all learning together on this platform.
Yes.
Thank you everyone for joining. And I would like to thank Aris Nirbhavane, who read a very nice story today, and also Kranti Didi for conducting the story, its story. As you know that we are coming towards the 2025, and we do have the new host. We are planning to rotate the host every week. So please